الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أنزلناه في ليلة القدر وما أدراك ما ليلة القدر. ليلة القدر خير من ألف شهر تنزل الملائكة والروح فيها بإذن ربهم من كل أمر سلام هي حتى مطلع الفجر. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي وبحمده سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر.
سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي وعلى
الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
سبحان ربي وعلى سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله.
الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. يا الله يا رحمن يا رحيم يا مقلب القلوب على دينك صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر.
سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي
الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر.
سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله
الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى.
الله أكبر.
الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد.
الله أكبر.
سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله.
سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر.
سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي وعلى.
الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي وعلى. يا رحمن الدنيا والآخرة ارحم من ليس له الدنيا والآخرة.
الله أكبر. الحمد لله.
أشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما.
اللهم صل على
محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
صل على محمد وآل محمد.
لا إله إلا الله إله واحد ونحن له مسلمون. لا إله إلا الله ولا نعبد إلا إياه مخلصين له الدين ولو كره المشركون. لا إله إلا الله ربنا ورب آبائنا الأولين. لا إله إلا الله وحده أنجز وعده ونصر عبده وعز جنده وهزم الأحزاب وحده. فله الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت ويحيي وهو حي لا يموت بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآل الطيبين الطاهرين.
Inshallah, making fast prayer.
صلاة القصر.
أستغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل
أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أشهد أن عليا ولي الله. أشهد أن عليا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إذا جاء النصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا. الله أكبر. سبحان ربي العظيم. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله. صلى الله عليه وسلم. الله أكبر.
سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم.
الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم.
الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. ذلك اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. رب اغفر لي ولوالدي وارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا وزدنا بالإحسان إحسانا وبالسيئات إحسانا. رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. وصل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم. صلى الله عليه وسلم. الله أكبر.
سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم.
الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
سبحان الله يا لطيف ارحمني أرحمني.
الله أكبر. الحمد لله. فلا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم وعلى رسول الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
زيارة الأربعين. يقول سيدي ومولاي الحسين بن علي بن أبي طالب
صلاة عني ونيابة عن والدي ووالد والديه أخواني المؤمنين والمؤمنات ومن أوصاني بالدعاء والزيارة قربة إلى الله. السلام عليك يا ولي الله وحبيبه، السلام على خليل الله ونجيبه، السلام على صفي الله وابن صفيه، السلام على الحسين المظلوم الشهيد، السلام على أسير الكربات وقتيل العبرات. اللهم إني أشهد أنه وليك وابن وليك وصفيك وابن صفيك والفائز بكرامتك وبالشهادة، وحبوته بالسعادة واجتبيته بطيب الولادة وجعلته سيدا من السادة وقائدا من القادة وذائدا من الذادة، وأعطيته مواريث الأنبياء وجعلته حجة على خلقك من الأوصياء، فأعذر في الدعاء ومنح النصح وبذل مهجته فيك ليستنقذ عبادك من الجهالة وحيرة الضلالة، وقد توازر عليه من غرته الدنيا وباع حظه بالأرذل الأدنى وشرى آخرته بالثمن الأوكاس وتغطرس وتردى في هواه وأسخطك وأسخط نبيك وطاع من عبادك أهل الشقاق والنفاق. أهل الشقاق والنفاق وحملة الأوزار المستوجبين النار، فجاهدهم فيك صابرا محتسبا حتى سفك في طاعتك دمه واستبيح حرمه. اللهم فلعنهم لعنا وبيلا وعذبهم عذابا أليما. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا ابن سيد الأوصياء، أشهد أنك أمين الله وابن أمينه، عشت سعيدا ومضيت حميدا ومت فقيدا مظلوما شهيدا، وأشهد أن الله منجزا ما وعدك ومهلكا من خذلك ومعذبا من قتلك، وأشهد أنك وفيت في عهد الله وجاهدت في سبيله حتى أتاك اليقين، فلعن الله من قتلك ولعن الله من ظلمك، ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. اللهم إني أشهدك إني ولي لمن والاه وعدو لمن عادى، بأبي أنت وأمي يا ابن رسول الله، أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأصلاب الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة، لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها ولم تلبسك المدهمات من ثيابها، وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المسلمين ومعقل المؤمنين، وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرضي الزكي الهادي المهدي، وأشهد أن الأئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وأعلام الهدى والعروة الوثقى والحجة على أهل الدنيا، وأشهد الله وأشهد أني بكم مؤمن وبإيابكم موقن بشرائع ديني وخواتيم عملي، وقلبي لقلبكم سلم وأمري لأمركم متبع ونصرتي لكم معدة حتى يأذن الله، فمعكم لا مع عدوكم،
صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم، آمين رب العالمين. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين. السلام عليك يا سيدي يا مولاي يا أبا الفضل العباس. السلام على مولاتي زينب وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات ومن مات على الإيمان. رحم الله من يقرأ الفاتحة فاسبق الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والحمد والثناء لرب العالمين، وأفضل الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، حبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا بالقاسم المصطفى محمد. وعلى أهل بيت الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. Assalamu alaikum jami'an. Before I begin tonight's majlis, I would like to ask you to kindly recite Fatiha for the soul of my parents, Yahya Abdulaziz and Aisha Mekki. May Allah have mercy on their souls, who passed away this summer and in the summer of 2020. And also to remember your own marhooms, your own family members, and those who have passed away as well, with a Fatiha and Salawat. Bismillah. My parents, when they became Muslim, initially there wasn't a lot of information that they had about the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them. And over time they were able to be introduced to the Ahlul Bayt, to learn more about them, to share that with myself and all of my siblings. It's a great blessing. The movement of Imam Hussain alayhi salam was very significant to them. This was part of their understanding of the Ahlul Bayt and their teachings, their stance on justice and on being on the side of the oppressed. This was very significant to my parents and many people who seek the teachings of the Ahlul Bayt, peace be upon them. Back in when I was growing up, there wasn't many programs happening very close in my city, back home in Philly. In Philadelphia, there wasn't really any programs of commemoration of the Ahlul Bayt. During Muharram, predominantly a Sunni community, but a large Muslim community, but not in a lot of awareness or knowledge of the Ahlul Bayt, not a lot of programs happening around the times of Muharram and things like that. So we would often travel to other nearby cities and places that had programs and events. I remember growing up in a masjid where the programs were not in English, but we used to go there all the time. We didn't understand much of some of the speeches or the nohas, the latmiyas, the poetry. But my parents were insistent about participation for the love of Imam Hussain, and the connection with other Muslims was also significant. I didn't think about this being so significant at the time, but it's tremendous, actually. Because I realized that we don't have a lot of patience and tolerance oftentimes for new things, for different things. And if we want to see Islam thrive, if we truly are lovers of Imam Hussain and what he stood for, then we have to surely have a path forward to embrace this as part of our life and culture in this country today. In 2011, I was doing a study on the culture of Aza and mourning as it pertains to Muharram and Karbala and Imam Hussain, the whole culture of Aza, if you will, that is amongst Shias. And some, maybe even non-Shias, may have participated in this survey, but predominantly Shias, but from different backgrounds, from different places throughout North America. The purpose of this study was to understand how do people understand, how does it resonate with them, the culture of Azar that they see. And it was a very interesting, a lot of things came out of this study. So one of the first findings that I will mention is that in this study, it became evident that there are many subgroups within the Shia Muslim community in North America. That it's not just one community. There are so many different groups within this community, so many different demographics that make up the community. People from so many different backgrounds, different languages and cultures. Predominantly, the people who are identifying were coming from different groups. There was also a theme. I was asking a lot of questions in this questionnaire, like how do people rate their experience and participation in majalis? How do they experience, do they cry, do they weep, do they feel an emotional connection? When they listen to poetry, do they themselves perform or recite? Do they only listen? It was a very lengthy questionnaire, a lot of answers. So I just want to point out a few things about this to get to the next part of the talk. Sallallahu alaihi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And it was interesting because even though there was a lot of room for comments and statements where people explained why they felt this way, some people said they had no connection to the culture of Azad. They don't feel connected at all. Some people said, I feel connected in this language. I feel connected in this culture. I feel connected but not in English. I feel connected but only in Farsi or only in Arabic. I can listen to the lectures. Some people said, I like to listen to the lectures and I don't really like to participate in the matam. There was a lot of different perspectives and different groups of people. So it became interesting because what it means is that work has to be done to understand how to be successful in sharing this message when there's so much differences in diversity.
One thing was common though, a basic common understanding which makes complete sense to most of us, was that within these different groups or different age ranges, there was a common theme that people wanted to be in places where they felt understood and they felt that people understood them. This was a basic theme. You want to be in places where you feel understood. You feel welcome and you feel comfortable. There was a lot of people in a group that were, many of them were the first generation of Muslims, maybe in America. Came from maybe Pakistan or India, Iran, Afghanistan, Iraq, or different other countries. All of these different groups and their different ages want to be understood, and this makes complete sense, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Inherently, alhamdulillah, Allah says He created man, He gave him the power of expression, right? So that he can express himself, so that he can talk. Allamahu al-bayan. So we can convey, so that we have things in common, we can learn, we can build, we can grow together, we can create trust. Another thing that was very evident was that seemed to be different groups. There was a group of people who were very much, their first languages were non-English languages. Farsi, Arabic, Urdu were their first languages. There's another group, their languages were, they grew up maybe or were born here at a young age or came here at a young age and usually spoke multiple languages. Farsi and English, Urdu and English, and different things like that, right? A lot of the children of immigrants were in this tier. And then there was another group as well, and these were people who had much less connection to a back home understanding of the culture of Azan. These may be children who only spoke English, for example, or youth or people who only identified more so with living here. Maybe they never lived abroad or traveled abroad or spoke any languages or had a strong connection or roots with Farsi or Urdu, so on and so forth. Okay. All these groups of people. Another group of people. This group of people, the fourth group, these were people who don't have a reference that's foreign about Azan and culture, right? A lot of people who are from here, born here, raised here, their roots are very deep here. Right? They may not have a Eastern reference for mourning, but it doesn't mean that they don't mourn, or Azan, or different things like that. A lot of converts may fit into this category. Okay. These some of the different groups that came out of this study. Language comprehension was one of the most important things that was evident here, right? People are going to places of things that they want to understand, right? So when I was growing up and I was going to majalis, sometimes there was no majlis in English because most of the people were from the generation that they didn't need this as a necessity per se, or they felt understood in this context. Sometimes it was also so there's some challenges here. There's some different groups. I want to jump forward to some of the things that came out of the responses as well. One of the main things that came out of these responses was a need to have a better connection to Imam Hussain alayhi salam, to the Ahlul Bayt, to the culture of Azan, to what happened in Karbala. But a factual and real connection, and an organic connection, that's a part of the city, the society, and the culture, and that grows from here within the culture. Everything has a frame of reference. When someone decides they want to do a majlis of Azan, has a frame of reference. What is their frame of reference? What did I see when I grew up in majlis of Azan? And this becomes how I present or see a connection. I want to get to some tangible points of what we can do where we can improve our connection to Imam Hussain. Practical, tangible points that we can do. Before I mention that, I want to reiterate about
the story of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, and how the presence of Imam Hussain and the presence of Azza was something in the Caribbean islands that was present in the 1800s. One of the reasons why this is important is because we need to study and understand examples of where these cultures are blending or clashing, or what's happening, or how is Islam being successfully transitioning in a place that may seem different culturally. How did it grow in this place, the culture of Azza that was happening? So the short of the story, and we've talked about this before in some other settings in the past, but for those who may be less familiar, to reiterate because it's important. When a lot of indentured servants from India came to the Caribbean, to Trinidad and these areas to work on plantations, to work as indentured servants, many of them were Shia Muslims. So these Shia Muslims find themselves in the West. They find themselves in a different land, a different custom, different society, and they need to navigate, and they want to be successful. What do you think they're thinking about? I have kids. I have to raise my kids here. I wonder if my kids are going to be Muslim. Are they going to know about? How are they going to know about Karbala? How are they going to know about Imam Hussain? They imagine the questions they were asking themselves in the 1800s are questions that many people are asking themselves right now. Right? We don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time. Sometimes we can look and take a lesson and see what happened. What did they do? What didn't they do? What are some things that we can take from that? And sharing some practical ideas. When they, early on, there was an incident that happened during one of their julus, where they would have a procession. They would go out, the Muslims, and it was interesting because over time, some of the Sunni Muslims were also a part of this event. And what was happening was they were doing their procession and remembering Imam Hussain and mourning, and probably as they did in their country, and they were trying to uphold the same custom. They were trying to maintain their faith in this non-Muslim land. Similar scenario, right? There's an incident where the local police shoot and kill so many people. I forget the exact number, but I want to say that it's around 100. And it's called the Muharram Massacre. 100 people were killed for going to their procession, shot by authorities. Okay. Now I want to pay attention to, first let's fast forward to what is now, and then let's pay attention to some of the details. Right now, there is a procession, a custom. It's not exactly the same as what you see in a lot of the Muslim world. Why is that? Is it different just because of the different culture? Well, let's pay attention to what we see. When you look up, and inshallah, as I said before, do research and Google and find some scholarly articles where you can find out more details. The carnival is known now as Hussain, Hosay, right? Coming from obviously what word? Hussain, right? Where there is a kind of event that is a reenactment, partially, or procession, but it looks very different. There's a lot of Hindu influence that seems to be present in this procession as well. There's a lot of non-Muslim influence or things that seem to be a part of this, as well as what we see today. But it looks different from that thing that we know and recognize as the mourning of Imam Hussain.
of the azah, of the crying, of the things where we say and remember the things that happened and retell the story and mourn for them. It's so different. Some of these things were different. One of the things that seems to have happened, and this is where I'd like you to pay extra attention. Let's say one loud salawat, please. These Muslims that found themselves feeling maybe isolated, alone, or in a distant land, found other people who spoke the same language from a similar background, but were not the same religious identity or religious values or spiritual values. There was a Hindu influence, but part of the sentiment may have been simply that, hey, I'm away from home. This is somebody who speaks my language. I want to connect with other Indians. This may be part of the reason for why it became what it is now, or it became different in so many ways. My points about this is exactly what we're seeing today in terms of how if we don't have a plan for sharing the message of Imam Hussain in America, rest assured that not only the children or the children's children will not know, there may be something that exists of Muharram or Azah that is very, very strange or problematic. This is a serious matter. Right? So in that study, one of the things that came out evident was that a lot of people were looking for a piece of back home, which is why many of the masajids were established. It was a nostalgia of, I miss back home food, I miss seeing people that from my country, from my city, that speak my language. And all of that is good. But what is the path for tomorrow, for this culture of Azad to be a part of the fabric of this country, where anyone in America can understand? Now there's a very important point here that I want to also add before I go to these last practical steps, inshallah. Please say salawat. There are a plethora of people doing da'wah right now, inviting people to Islam, doing tabligh, sharing and propagating the message of Islam in America, but who have no understanding of America. Allahu Akbar. How is that even possible? I'm going to teach something to people without having any understanding of the people. How is that possible? What does it mean is that I have no intention to share the message with anyone. It's an insular message for me, in an echo chamber of only people that I'm sure also are in the same space and understanding and have some similar background. We have to do some things to change this, where the message can resonate in the society. Society needs Imam Hussain. Society needs justice. People in their homes right now want justice. We don't want to share it with them at all. So my first thing, and I'll try to go to the list quickly. Number one, share the message of Imam Hussain with one single person. We mentioned this before. Share the message of Imam Hussain every Ashura or Arbaeen with one human being. One. Just one. Your neighbor has to know about Karbala and Imam Hussain. Your co-worker has to have some understanding. Share with one person. This is a homework for us. I have to share with one person about Imam Hussain. I don't care if you do it in passing. I don't care if you're getting in a cab and you share with the driver. Share with someone about Imam Hussain. I don't care if you post it on the internet, a brief message. Share something.
Imam Hussain gave his life for you to be able to be in this place and have the values of what you have. The freedoms that you have are not because of the United States of America. The freedoms that you have are because of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Understand this. No, you can have freedom of speech in America and also Muslim ban, and also you get extra watch, and also surveillance, but say whatever you like. The illusion of freedom, these illusions of comfort have sullied us, have caused us to not see the reality. Oh, you have so much freedom of speech here, alhamdulillah. Share with one person about Imam Hussain, please. Can you say that we have? I have people that come to me and tell me about what they want their children to do. Aspirations of religion and spirituality they have for their children, what they need them to be. Your children are not computers to simply just program. They have to have an understanding. They have to have a connection. That connection has to be an emotional and spiritual and intellectual understanding. We cannot deprive and rob a generation from this. But if we don't share, we've done that effectively. Think about this. There's so many people here. Everybody tells one person. Maybe this one person becomes a Muslim. Maybe they don't become an enemy. Number two, I want to encourage masajid and centers to have special needs accommodations. What does that mean? What can that look like? I'm not talking about just specifically some of those legal parameters about accessibility and things like that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about making atmosphere such that it's relevant to people who may be the weakest among us sometimes in some ways, or have more restrictions in some ways. So someone with autism, or someone with different mental health issues, or someone with other kinds of things, how can they benefit from society? There was a community where there was a family or some youth that were deaf or hard of hearing. And even though they came to the community often, there was nothing that changed. There was no accommodation. So what happened? Over time, they found a church that always had accommodation. Other places that had sign language permanently, that had people who didn't know, but they went out of their way to learn a few words, to share with this person, to make them feel welcome. Right? Understanding. Right? So how do we do special needs accommodations? We give an understanding. Right? In the community, someone with autism may visit. People with autism, sometimes there's a spectrum. There are different things that we may see. They may say something loudly in the middle of a majlis. Does that mean that they should not come to the majlis? Are they welcome in the majlis of Imam Hussain? Would Imam Hussain welcome them? If they would yell loudly, if they have a Tourette's syndrome, if they have something else, would they be welcome in the majlis of Imam Hussain, I ask you? And we don't have to answer this. The answer will be in what we see in our masajid, in our jami, in our centers. If we see a sign that says, there's sometimes people here with autism, or autism means this, or some people are hard of hearing, right? That we have blind, whatever, some things that help people, the community, to understand. This is an accommodation. An announcement from time to time. This is an accommodation. An email that gives people a brief explanation of what something is. Some community members have these needs. This is what it may look like. So you're not alarmed, right? So then the person can feel welcome and a part of the community. It's a justice, right? Number 4, signage is very important. And usually we do a great job, and these are some very beautiful, that would have been draped around the masjid, beautifully.
I would love to see some things like this written in English. Print it, buy it, ask someone who makes a sign to write, Ya Hussain, write Hussain something, write it in calligraphy. Embrace some of the things that are part of this culture which may help to enhance for these people. Ya Hussain in calligraphy in Arabic is beautiful, but not when I can't read it. But maybe in English or some graffiti print or whatever kind of thing that resonates with whatever demographic, that is the way that I'm going to reach people. Right? Signage is so important. Marketing, corporate America knows this so well. Branding, signage. They make sure you know. You see the golden M arches from miles away. They make sure you know what these things mean and represent and create associations. We need to do this on a larger scale, but I'm saying to start from everybody, every masjid, take one. We're going to do our signage. We're going to do a youth event where all the youth create big signs, make them beautiful artwork, and we put them throughout the masjid. We put them outside. Anything. We buy the billboard, and we explain something about Imam Hussain on there, for example. Number 5 is the julus. And I've talked about this a lot in the past. Make the julus understandable. That's my only request. It's very important. I remember growing up going to New York City. And I didn't have a lot of recollection because I was very young at that time. They're doing julus in New York City. It seemed like, wow, this is something big and so amazing. As I went and participated and witnessed how julus are as an adult, it made me realize something. It's often not for the people to understand. It's often intentionally for people to not understand. I'm going out of my way to do a matam in a language that people don't understand, knowing that they don't understand, not just the language, the context. What are you doing? What does it mean? Everything has a frame of reference. What is my frame of reference if I've never seen someone beating their chest? What is my frame of reference? For example, if I haven't heard Ya Hussain, what is my frame of reference? So I need to make a connection so that these things can mean something to people, or they don't mean anything. Right? Understanding the culture means that I have to understand people mourn different. Growing up, so many of my parents' relatives were not Muslim. They were Christian. For a lot of them, when someone passes away, it's a totally different experience when we're talking about death, when we're talking about mourning, when we're talking about participation in gatherings, funeral, how people greet each other. I think it may be important to visit or to be a part of these kind of funerals that happen locally. If you have someone here, and to see how do people mourn, what is normal, what do they understand? Because it's very interesting. Because the Western society it's become so secular, and that's one of the differences. A more secular society doesn't feel the need to have such a deep emotional connection with something like death, with something like the hereafter. It's secular. We don't want to talk about God and the next thing and what happens next, who goes where and these things. That's private for your personal life. So there's a disconnect there. So you have to make the connection for someone. Right? Someone who all of their life in this country may have never cried a tear at a funeral. You have to understand. Someone who, if they cried tears, they didn't have a 3rd day or a 7th day or a 40th day after where they kept remembering. Someone who went to a funeral where there were 5 people and it wasn't COVID, or nobody was there. Everybody doesn't have these experiences of seeing thousands of people at a funeral. Qasim Soleimani, Millions of people. When they were talking about Qasim Soleimani on the news in America, it was just interesting. You know, I always find it funny when you go out of your way not to be objective. It speaks volumes about how you really feel and your insecurities. When you go out of your way to say, yeah, for Qasim Soleimani, it looks like a few hundred people showed up. Like, it's very funny, but it shows how insecure you are. At one of the largest funerals in the history of humanity, you feel like you got to go out of your way to downplay it. This is a disconnect in a secular society. So when you want to share Imam Hussain, your level of tears may not mean anything to someone who doesn't experience the same emotional connection generally for harsh things in their own life. I'm not saying Americans are so cold they don't cry, no. But it's a different understanding, a different level of expression. I always tell people this story because it's funny to me, of one of my good friends who became Muslim while in the military, became Muslim and follower of the Ahlul Bayt. He was stationed in Iraq at one point, grew to really probably dislike this military occupation and all of the things that they were a part of. Eventually he learned about Islam and he became Muslim. But in his experience of becoming Muslim, he hadn't been Shia for very long. He comes to a Shia gathering. Come to our masjid, it's the night of Ashura. Right? He comes to the night of Ashura, but he's not prepared. Has he ever been in a room where they turned off all the lights? You want your neighbor, your friend to be able to at least understand. You have to add context. So this goes to my next point, which is adding context. Explain. We think that everyone understands everything in the spaces that we're at, but that's not true. That's not true. When you ask a group of people who Imam Hussain is, even if they're at a majlis of Imam Hussain, there will be someone who doesn't know. Don't assume so many things. Yes, Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari, someone doesn't know who that is. That doesn't mean anything to some people, to many people. We have to add context. We say salawat so much. Do we ever think, is there one person who doesn't know what this means? No, we're just going to say it. You should know. So think about if you don't have those connections of those first groups that I mentioned, where you have this deep culture, where you grew up in India, right? You have a deep connection, or you grew up in Afghanistan, or no, maybe you're in the next generation, you still have some connection. You grew up in, overseas, you spent some time there, you came here. But what about the later? As this is a different understanding, it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It means they need to understand Imam Hussain in the context of America. But how can I understand Imam Hussain in the context of America without understanding America? When I ask people about things that happen in America or in the Western world, I'm surprised that there's no understanding. Do you have any idea of how many people are your Muslim brothers and sisters, Bert, who are in the ocean, who were thrown from slave ships? Muslim, who were followers of Ahlul Bayt, some of them maybe. Have we studied this? Do we know anything about this? Can we share this? This is a connection for the people here. When the people here are saying, wow, there were so many people who were Muslim like you, I see a connection with these people who are in America. Read about the person who was a slave in America. He wrote in Arabic. He was more literate, more knowledgeable, but he was a slave. He was enslaved. He was forced to become a slave. Let's go to the next point. I want to get through some of these, inshallah, with a lot of salawat. So inshallah we won't have time for all of them. But inshallah we'll go through a couple of more of them. We're on number 5. Number 6 was to say Arabic with the context and translations of English. When we recite Quran for a majlis, I encourage, it's very good to start with the ayats of Quran, to recite them beautifully in Arabic, or youth to recite them. Alhamdulillah, that's all good. But explain a little bit. A good translation goes a long way. Right? A good explanation of a couple of these ayats. When we say salawat, other things, add the context.
of what is happening. Explaining to people what is happening, right? This is Noha time. Cultures are different. Some people, they do matam, they sit down and do matam. Some people, they like to stand up. Some people, they like to have a circle. Some people, there's a lot of different variations. Sometimes it's not about explaining to people from outside the masjid. Sometimes it's explaining to ourselves because we're already a diverse, multicultural group. And someone coming from, there's always someone coming from the children who are coming from their parents are Iraqi may not be familiar with a custom that the other children are, that their parents are from Pakistan. So even that interconnection, we have to explain to people what we're doing. Let me put it like this. Here's a measuring stick. You should feel like I can tell someone off the street, they can walk inside the majlis and be able to understand what's happening at any time. This is a good measuring stick. I can walk off and I know that the announcer is going to say, thank you everyone, we're now going to begin the portion where we do matam. Matam means this. Or we will be beating our chest. This is usually how it happens. And some explanation. We don't explain anything. You have to know already when you come here. You have to already know and already have accepted and already have participated and understand everything. We don't leave room. How can we share the message of Imam Hussain? We have zero intention to do that if this is the case. Right? We can't speak to just the theoretical. This is what we're seeing. Next. Intentional, and he touched on this a little bit, intentional cross connections, right? These are multicultural. Sometimes we have multicultural centers, but I think they are like multicultural silos, right? We have to be careful this doesn't happen. Be intentional in your circles. Intentional in your circles. If you're sitting, because this is one of the things that used to happen. I used to go to a camp, and when we used to go to the youth camp or this camp event, we noticed that every year the same friends sat with the same friends. Their buddies sat here. These guys sat here. This group. And oftentimes at the conference, it was a similar thing. It was a conference that would also happen. Everybody who was Farsi speaking was here. Iranians here, other people here. So it was multicultural, but there were still silos. There was still segregation. Not all of this inherently wrong, but we have to make connections where we understand. I believe we need to be so intentional in this that we explain things down to the basic things that we think everyone understands. Like even food. We think everyone understands this is what this is how you eat it, this is how it's made. Sometimes even little explanation. I remember someone came to a masjid, they didn't know what anything was. All of the food that was put out beautifully, this beautiful spread, and they had to ask at every single thing, can you tell me what this is? Oh, this is the this, is the this. And what is this? And we had to go step by step by step. We could have put a little sign, that might have saved some time. That might have been helpful, right? We're not thinking about sharing Imam Hussain even in this capacity. This is a small, tiny thing. But how does it change how comfortable I am now? I can come, I understand. Alhamdulillah. How would you feel you go somewhere, you can't understand or you don't know what's going on, you feel uncomfortable. You feel out of place. You feel like, oh yeah, I got something busy to do tomorrow. You feel like making excuses to get out of there. Next thing, Salat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Everyone who is tired, please say one more loud salawat. All the not tired people, please say a louder salawat. Okay, I'm trying to scroll down to the last couple of the most important ones. Okay. Use your talent. Use your talents, whatever they already are. There's a lot of ideas of things we can do in the masjid, we can do in the center that require a lot of work. Right? And I'm not
adverse to those. Try those things. Don't shy away from doing things that are big or hard or different or radical, as long as they're necessary and helpful for the movement and sharing this message with the next generation and more people. Then alhamdulillah, do these things. But within the scope of your own talents, there's so many things available. We have artists in this community. We have reciters in this community. We have people with perfect pitch. We have some of the hardest workers. We have strong people in this community. We have people who know legal aspects in this community. We have people who know medicine. We have people who run circles around the best IT people. We have so many talented resources. We have to use the resources that we already have. Yes, it'd be great if we could go bring in someone to do this, who does this, and inshallah we will. But right now, we have a person in the community, for example, who does martial arts already, and would come and teach some of the kids. We have someone in the community already who teaches English, and will come to the masjid and teach people who need help with language, or ESL, or things like that. We have people in the community that already know how to navigate the job market and can come and do a 30-minute session on how to make a resume. We have resources, we have options that we do not always exercise. Right? We need to just share some of these things. So we have artists. Bismillah, all of our artists, all of those children who love art, all of the people who are professionals, this Arbaeen, beautiful artwork everywhere. Why not? This is something we can already do. Another thing, we can already use the networks that we have. We don't need to always build new things. There's so much connection right here. So many people we don't know in our own communities. And I'm not talking about networking on this superficial level. I'm talking about brotherhood in our networking. I'm talking about sisterhood in networking. I'm talking about real communications with one another. Next thing, this is something that some people already do. And I love help someone who's not going to have the opportunity for ziyarat physically, who may never have a chance. Make opportunities for people to go to ziyarat. Some people sponsor other people. Some people from this community have helped other people to go to ziyarat. This is such a tremendous way to pay forward the experience of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Also, what's wrong with sometimes having a fund simply for people who cannot go to ziyarat? Go fund me something. We're just going to raise a couple of $1,000. Whatever happens by Ashura, and for Arbaeen we send a couple of community members, just for ziyarat, for example. Why not? This is not something extra. We can simply do this. Whoever can participate. These are easy ways to share the message of Imam Hussain. Two more and inshallah we'll close. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Scheduling. If we want kids to come to programs, everybody who's a parent already knows what's up. You have a long late night, then you have a longer late bedtime, and then you have a long morning, and it's a domino effect for the rest of the week, and then it comes to the next program, and you start thinking, do I want to go to the masjid? I want to, but let's make it easy for ourselves. Let's make it easy for our parents and kids, please. Some of us like to chat, we can hang, we can sit, and we can talk, we can go late night, and that's good. And I love that this masjid allows people to stay and sit. It doesn't kick people out so soon. Let me not but it's important to have this welcoming space that's open, that you can do that. If we have programs a little bit earlier that children can be there, then that's good for the children, it's good for the families, it makes them better community members, right? We want to make it easy for people to come to the masjid. The last thing you want is to make the masjid hard or difficult. Why would the Prophet make his salat in jama'ah? Why would he do it more quickly? Just to make it easier. He said maybe there's some elderly people, maybe there's some youth, maybe there's some people who are pregnant. I want to make it easy, right? So he would recommend to shorten the time when we do jama'ah, to not make it too lengthy, to make it easy for people. One of the worst things I would say that you can do for your children is make Islam difficult for them. Watch how fast they run away from Islam. Sometimes I see people making things difficult for their children unnecessarily. A child wanted to wear something colorful. No! It's not the day of Ashura, it's the ayyam between Muharram and Safar, and you're not going to wear anything but black for these 2 months. Is this a sunnah of one of our imams, inshallah, that we can share with someone? Or no, it's not. And if it's not, it's okay, but do I have to impose it on someone? Do I have to make this hard? Now this little girl that wanted to wear the flower blue hijab now has a dislike for hijab. Has a dislike for the masjid. So strict. Like, where did this come from? How does someone get there? It starts in something small like this. Don't make religion hard. Don't make Islam hard. I've said many times, we have no right to be harder than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be more strict than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How? And we want the law to be lenient with us. Oh goodness, please, leniency, rahmah, mercy. We have to have the same thing when it comes to dealing with our children. Make it easy for them. Make it easy for them. If something's halal, alhamdulillah, don't make it so that there's a negative connection. And again, the scheduling, the timing, if it makes it easy, whatever that looks like, keep that in consideration. Or maybe do a survey, ask parents, is there a better time for you? Will you bring your children? And then you hold those parents accountable. Hold on now, program was at 4 o'clock. Why weren't you here? I'm going to find you, I'm going to call you, I'm going to text you. What happened? Right? We make it available for you. We have to make it easy for the next generation. If we don't make it easy for them, how will they know about all of this? You know what they're going to say? Yeah, there was majalis, but I was tired, or I was playing, or I didn't know about it, or different things like this. We have to make it ways that they're able to be active participants. And the last thing I will say is training. We have to have mentorship and apprenticeship. Whatever task is happening in our centers or our masajid, every center has people that are hardworking behind the scenes. I call these people the gold and the treasure of the community. Every community has some treasure. They're the hardest working, probably least known, or sometimes get the least recognition. They don't care. They're not in it for the recognition. But we have to have ways where that can translate to the next generation. It has to be apprenticeship. It has to be mentorship. It has to be one young person or a few of them going with someone when they're doing the task. How do you invite an alim? I don't know. Okay, we're going to take this group of kids. I want to sit down and explain to them. This is what it takes. How do you run a center? What does it take? Some of the kids were asking me, well, why don't we do this and why don't we do that? Because when you're a kid, you don't have a frame of reference from money. How things cost money. Why don't we just do that? Or just buy and not buy a thing. But when you understand the depth, but you have to explain these things in a way.
Apprenticeship and mentorship means that the people who are volunteering at the masjid have now a wing that's connected to them that helps and supports them. It should never be that if the one person who does the task or does this isn't available, that now nothing can happen, right? Or things can't move forward, or things become difficult. No, we have to train people. Who are the mu'adhins in the community? Every young man needs to be a mu'adhin. He needs to be able to be a mu'adhin. Why not? Okay, we take 5 minutes, I cut 5 minutes from my speech, and we sit down, we do 5 minutes of practicing adhan with some of the youth, and these are our mu'adhins of tomorrow. When you empower the next generation tangibly, then you have done your ziyarat of Hussain alayhi salam. Until then, you have done no ziyarat of Imam Hussain alayhi salam. Let's be clear. Until we are ready to tangibly embrace how this message of Hussain can really be for all that we're missing. Our ziyarat is incomplete, I would say. We're missing some aspects of it. Right? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring success to the entire Muslim community. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring special mercy, special love, special success to this Salt Lake City community that has welcomed people from everywhere. That we have people that have come from different cities and places to be here and visited here and have had nothing but good things to say. Man, these people are so good in Salt Lake. The brothers all speak. Everyone says salam. It's such a small thing. This is what people remember. People sit together and eat. Different people may sit with you. It's not always exclusive. This is one of the beautiful things. And I say this as we are streaming, and I hope that more people in other communities take some of the lessons and things that are being successful here and take them in other places, and vice versa, so that we can continue to grow and build. I believe that the essence of the ziyarat of Imam Hussain is in these things. Inshallah. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله عبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد.
من هو آل محمد يلا حسين يا 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 حسين غم الشبير كلا يهدي جتا حسين غم الشبير كلا يهدي جتا حسين غم الشبير كلا يهدي جتا ये दाग गले से ये दाग गले से मिटाया नहीं जाता हमसे गम शबीर बुलाया नहीं जाता इतने शबीर मेहंदी माया इतने
Hussain is from me and I am from Hussain. You are one of the greatest warriors who suffered so much pain. Allah chose you to carry the truth with all the truth of the one and only true religion. Throughout the whole world of humans and jinn, you brought me back to my origin. You gave your life in order for us to have a better afterlife. That's what we call sacrifice. How much more can happen, more than words can do. That's why I'm excited for the day. That is why I started to pray. When people betray you with their eyes, you cut off your head and carry the honesty of our children. Allah, please have no problem for these people and their surroundings. They didn't realize that the letter of their saying is in the back. Whatever we believe in the heart, mind, blood, and tears of God. Every Muharram believes right and waits to the Lord. Your legacy is long. It started with Zainab and Zainab Arbaeen, the day they left. If it wasn't for them, they would be I was blessed to all my mission. I adopted and decided to follow your vocation as I prayed for your mission.
We see how Maulana is so passionate about really knowing how to with her father. But we also look at our own kids. It is dearly important for all of us. These are the Qasimis of the future of the center. These are the Zainabis of the future of the center. And they are the Fatimis of the future of the center. And it's empirically important for all of us to be a collective group of members and parents, prospective parents, and future kids coming to the center and participating. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. وداع حضرت رقیہ با پدرش. The pain of Sayyid Ruqayya with the father. When we look at kids like Naira and all these little young girls, we see how they are fathers of their girl. They are so attached to their father. And on the day that when they brought them to Shah, can you imagine the eyes of Sayyid Ruqayya when she sees other little girls going to their father in the Bazaar of Shah and being held by their father? Sayyid Ruqayya has no way to do this. Imagine that pain. اگر دردم دوا میشد چه میشد یاسر اگر دردم دوا میشد چه میشد یاسر نصیبم کربلا Everybody here have that fire inside and every year where Arbaeen they want to walk give their respect and their pilgrimage to Sayyid Shuhada Salam. In Hussain Keys Ke Aulam. Who is this Hussain that the entire world are attracted to? In Hussain Keys Ke Aulam Hamadir Vanayus In Ke Sham'is Ke Janha Hame Parvanayus. What kind of candle is Imam saying that every soul, everyone are like moths floating around by the millions. In Chesham'is Ke Janha Hame Parvanayus Har kase mail suye Karb u balayash darad. Everybody has the desire and the passion to go to Jannah. Man nadanam che sirris ke dar khane us. I don't know the secret that is نگاه حضرت رقیه از سراغ خیر سید رقیه و وسط چشم فرفار در خراب بیت من ذاتی یکردم ای مدر و یاد تو بسیار یکردم ای مدر و یاد تو بسیار یکردم در خراب بیت من ذاتی یکردم ای مدر و یاد تو بسیار یکردم ای مدر
السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بثنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني زيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى ابن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم عجل وليك الفرج، اللهم عجل وليك الفرج، اللهم عجل وليك الفرج. اللهم أدخل على أهل القبور السرور، اللهم أغني كل فقير، اللهم أشبع كل جائع، اللهم اكسو كل عريان، اللهم اقضي دين كل مدين، اللهم فرج عن كل مكروب، اللهم رد كل غريب، اللهم فك كل اسير، اللهم اصلح كل فاصل من امور المسلمين، اللهم اشفي كل مريض، اللهم اشفي كل مريض، اللهم سد فقرنا بغناك، اللهم غير سوء حالنا بحسن حالك، اللهم اقضي عنا الدين واغننا من الفقر انك على كل شيء قدير.